for the countdown. That's actually very nice. And also, you have a very soothing voice. I feel I should say. And no, I'm not just trying to butter you up, but I haven't told you that much. Anyway,
This is how Steve
um,
prays.
that's a
You have a very buttery voice, God.
yeah. If God sounded like Lunar, I'd consider praying. But yeah, yeah. Welcome to the Thought Bubble. This is the first episode streamed to the Banter YouTube channel, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was planned to
The
be
first
last week, but
time
then
people on the
yeah,
internet will see us that aren't in VR.
exactly. Yeah, this is a show where Ashley and I. Well, Ashley, do you
Kale
want to
has
introduce
joined the
yourself?
space.
Hello, I am Ashley. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm half of the people on here.
Exactly. And I'm Stevie, otherwise known as Mystery Steve. Any pronouns work. And yeah, we just talk about whatever shit comes to our minds. I do a lot of improv comedy. We both love tech. She loves Star Trek. Um, and
Yep.
uh, and if you want to raise your hand, by the way, I keep forgetting to say this in recent episodes, but if you want to raise your hand physically, anybody in the audience, I say physically as if there's another option. Uh, if you want to raise your hand to
Metaphorically.
like talk about whatever it is we are currently talking about with us, then yeah, you could just do that, and we'll megaphone you, and you can come right up to this center chair. That's what it's here for. Otherwise, we'll just chat with each other. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
So you have a
yeah,
Christmassy,
yeah.
holiday spirity topic.
Yeah, you have a nuke of a topic afterward, but yeah, I wanted to get this out of the way. Um, so let's get a show of hands. How many of you have seen not the Nightmare Before Christmas, the Polar Express, or the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol movie from like I don't know 12ish years ago? Yeah, okay, so a decent amount of folks, less than I would think though, because Polar Express people tend to mention that one a lot. Um, there is a bone I have to pick with people who with like generally people who criticize those movies because
Yeah.
I think, and I want to know your opinion on this, because like people make fun of how unsettling they are to watch, because they come from that when they were first experimenting with performance capture in the like early mid 2000s going into the 2010s. Um,
Has that
yeah, these
uncanny
move
valley feel.
yeah, exactly. Where like, basically they tried to add too much realism to this animated feature. And so this movie that is absolutely fucking gorgeous that does things with that feels real enough to somewhat resemble a human but also can do things with the camera and with the world around them that you couldn't possibly do with live action without having to put a certain amount of budget into it looking realistic, which I frankly like saving that budget and making it just look more whimsical. I'm saying I think people throw too much stake into the uncanny valley of it, and in my opinion, I think people tend to overreact about it, and I
Kale
think
has
they're just
joined the space.
beautiful, beautiful movies. Aside from when they're trying to be disturbing, which the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol tries to do several times, and so does the Polar Express, but only at like specific scenes where you're supposed to be freaked out. And I want to know, before I continue much further, like, do you have any existing opinions on
Yeah, I don't like how the Polar Express looks for the human
it?
faces. That is the main thing. The faces put me off entirely.
Wow, like prevented you from like watching it again or something, or
Yeah, I wouldn't want to watch it again.
wow. Okay. Yeah, because
Lyle has joined the space.
I don't know.
It
You
just
know
it
that I
feels
like.
off. It's the same way that like when Meta first introduced their avatar system, I didn't like them at all. Which they look mostly the same still, and I still don't really like them, but they're a tiny bit better than they used to be.
Yeah, but personally, I think that avatar system is perfectly serviceable, but I do see your point there, and I do have my
That's a
criticisms about it.
big
Acorn has
issue
joined the
with
space.
a lot of VR at the moment. It's serviceable. Doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah,
Like the Polar
especially avatar
Express's
systems.
style is serviceable. I could watch it and I got through it, but do I really like it enough to go back?
Well, you know that I like mixing mediums in
Yeah.
terms of art forms, in terms of animation, and I just think whatever you can do to bring animation and live action closer to each other in anything, I'm usually in for. And I don't know, even when I was like a little kid, the Polar Express, like it, I guess it like for me, I don't even know what it is about it, but it was more comforting to me than like other examples of CG faces or even live action. I can't quite put my finger on it, but like a lot of people will throw out these just absolutely like drop dead gorgeous movies with like shots that
XLP
you
has
just can't
joined the
accomplish
space.
with like in through other ways, and they quickly became, when I revisited them, some of my favorite Christmas movies and some of my favorite animated movies in general, especially with like how much weird, like even outside of
LLXD
the Uncanny
McFreak
Valley,
has
how much
joined the
weird
space.
shit happens in the Polar Express in terms of in terms of like, the ticket going through so many different ways to get back to the train, through the snowball and through the animals and through the environments, and how they anchor it more in realism with like the suburban atmosphere, then leading the kids to the North Pole through that, and keeping a level of grounding while then going into a like completely fantastical fantasy setting. And similarly with the Christmas Carol, how the translucent floor, I remember, and like having the whole room shaking around him as you see it's basically just a viewfinder in the floor, and having these close-ups that would look really unnerving in anything else. I guess like it does look unnerving to a lot of folks, but just there was something really satisfying about it to me, and I wanted to
Yeah,
discuss it.
the movie's gorgeous. I do want to give it credit. It is an
Yeah.
amazing movie. I just personally, I have a very sensitive uncanny valley kind of reflex.
I
So,
guess mine's just
like
very dull.
you don't
Yeah.
care as much about the Facebook meta horizons, whatever they fucking call it now, um like avatar system, but I still don't think it looks particularly good.
Yeah. I think it could be
It looks
significantly
like what
better,
Mark
but
Zuckerberg thinks humans look like. That's what it
I
feels like to
completely
me.
buy that. I think he thinks if you stepped out his door, then that's what the faces of the neighbors he passes by on his way to get the mail. That is what they look like to him.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but other like it's a gorgeous movie. I will not
Yeah.
give it any grief for the Uncanny Valley because there's no way around it for what it was doing.
Right. And especially with all the things that they do with lighting and light refraction,
Yeah.
I it's such a thing that specifically pokes out in my memory. And also, I will say, because I don't think this is against the TOS, you could let us know. Uh, if there's any movie that you want to get high during, like I think for the Christmas season, if you're not particularly prone to bad trips, you just can't beat it. It'll match the same amount of weird shit going on in your head, but in like this little wholesome package of like, well, frightening with much of the Christmas Carol because it's supposed to scare the shit out of Scrooge, but just
Yeah.
this eventually wholesome little package of niceness that you're just getting to giggle along with it. Also, Alan Silvestri does the score for both, does he? At least the Polar Express, which is one of the most iconic
Yeah.
Christmas scores I think that I've ever heard. But yeah.
I want to say on the weed consumption part, Steve lives where it's legal.
Oh
Don't do
yes,
crimes
I'm in.
unless you really
I
want
live in
to. Then I
Canada.
can't
No, do
stop you anyway.
crimes.
Do
Yeah,
crimes.
yeah.
Okay, we got permission. Do crimes.
Yeah, do select crimes, especially if you live in
God
an area.
says do crimes.
If you live in an area where gay marriage is illegal, do crimes. Yeah,
Do crimes.
do
Um,
crimes. But yeah, that's about all I have to say. I just had a bone to pick with that.
all right. Before my biggest topic of the episode, I want to talk about the original, and I don't know how much we haven't really talked about it on the stage, but the original thought for this bubble for this show was it was going to be us kind of setting habits and goals for our health, mental and physical, and kind of making sure we're checking up on each other because this was going to be like a once a month show at first, and now we're doing it once a week. Um, but hold up, I might get booted. The world is shaking.
Well, I see and hear you perfectly fine.
Okay,
Let's get a show of hands if
it stopped
anybody's
shaking
not.
now.
Okay.
Um, But that was the original point of the show, is to like kind of set these habits and be there to hold each other accountable for what we want to do. And we never ended up doing that. But I want to start now, or as of next week or the week after that.
Am I about to be
A
interrogated?
no, one thing that I like to do, that I get from the idea, comes from another podcast that I love, the Cortex podcast, which they do every year themes for their upcoming year instead of resolutions, because resolutions don't fucking work unless you're very dedicated,
Stud3NT
which most people
underscore
aren't.
fourth elite has
In
joined
But
which
the
case, you
space.
probably don't need a resolution. To be totally honest with you.
yeah, like this past year, my yearly theme, I don't remember the exact word I used at the beginning of the year, but it's turned out to be year of growth, which I've done so much of that. I won't get into all the details.
You've done basically nothing but. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I wanted to put today, either next week, or we'll probably talk about Doctor Who in the entirety of next week, but the week after that, I want us to both have set yearly themes for the coming year,
I think that's
so
a
that we can
grand
start
idea.
out, and every few months, every 2 or 3 months, we come back to it and see how it's been going.
As is your internet lineage, I would like to ask a specific question. How abstract are we? Are like is are we? Can we reasonably get with these?
Well, I can give you a couple examples of mine. My first year that I did a yearly theme was the year of healing, which turned into a few different things, but mainly, for years I wanted to go to therapy, and it never happened until I had this kind of guiding force through
Minimus
it,
Sapphire has
through my
joined the
year going
space.
towards healing, and which wasn't even necessarily the point of the year, but it happened. And what? Hello.
I didn't know whether to make a point of it. Good to see you, minimum
Pardon
sapphire.
me.
You
Get the
can
fuck off the
technically do this.
stage.
Oh god. Yeah, you're kind of getting real close to our buddy there. We might have to kick you if you don't. Go. Oh, I think they're trying to leave. I think they got caught on your
Abranico
hand.
has joined the
This is
space.
a
Oh
physics-based
yeah,
platform.
I'm stuck.
Oh
They're
no.
stuck on
Wait,
me.
are either one of you grabbing?
No.
Because you might want to stop grabbing unless you want to get kicked. Yeah.
Save
Uh,
me!
sorry, I did not
That was
ban.
real close.
Yeah, you got a little like tree going down your back. Yeah,
My year is personal space. The year of personal space.
your personal space.
But yeah, the kind of, almost the more abstract the idea, the better. My next year was the year of more, which was the year that we met, and I ended up ending that year with what, like 3 shows that I was doing,
Yeah.
something like that.
What's the difference
Which then
between the
led
year
into
of
my
more and
year
the
of
year of
less
growth?
because I got burnt out.
Right, exactly. When you first mentioned it, that's what scared me. But I am curious, what's the difference to you between the year of? Is this the big topic, by the way?
This is not the big topic, but we can talk
Oh,
about it
okay.
for as long as need be.
Okay. Uh, so I I'm wondering what is the difference to you between the year of more and the year of growth?
Year of more was about wanting to do more with the time that I had, because I felt like I was not
About to
doing a
die.
lot. I was sitting around watching YouTube, scrolling through whatever the equivalent of TikTok was at the time, because I didn't use TikTok yet. Um, but like I wasn't doing anything, and so year of
Sympathetic
more
Fuchsia
was,
has
oh, I
joined the
started.
space.
I did some writing, which never came to fruition, and no one will ever see it because it was shit. But I started doing shows. I started my creativity back. Year of growth was about more growing as a person. I've done a lot more reading since then. Just said yes to a lot more kind of experiences that I wouldn't have
Speaking of
normally
Jim
done.
Carrey movies.
um but stuff like that, to where it isn't like I'm creating more, I am living more.
Right. Oh, okay. I see. So like basically opening yourself up to like more experiences that just spring
Meat
up on
Shuffle
you that
has
maybe you
joined the
didn't
space.
expect, adding more,
Yeah,
vibrancy and variety to your life. But the year of growth is like personally what's already here, developing that. Is that what
kind
I'm to
of.
understand?
Yeah,
I see.
developing myself as a person,
Yeah. So
which
wait, this
then
was the
can
year of
lead
growth?
into more doing things.
Wait, was this the year of growth for you?
It, it turned out to be. I don't think that was the original word I used, but it was
Oh, okay.
similar. I don't remember
Because
the original word, which is kind of the point. You just want a kind of guiding force.
if this
Um,
was your year of growth, then I think we just accidentally had the same ish year, just
yeah,
just because I so much of it had to be like thrust upon me, because and I we've talked about it at least once before. It'll become relevant again, I'm sure, because Altspace closed down, the platform that I
yeah.
previously called home, the platform that is, a lot of the reason that this place is the way it is and that it exists.
This is the
Um,
phoenix out of the ashes of alt space.
Honestly, yeah, and gonna just give a little quick nod that that a lot
Uber
of
has
the
joined the
banter
space.
staff and higher ups are a lot easier to contact and a lot more a lot better about responding to bugs and shit. But yeah, anyway, yeah, since Altspace closed down, which I had such a close relationship with for over 5 years at that point. Basically my entire adult life, really, so to
Yeah,
speak. And so learning how to be without that and to
Wild
adapt
Style
to
has
other
joined the
similar
space.
fields, and then of course a bunch of I've talked vaguely about family stuff on here. I won't get too much into it, but yeah, a lot of changes have happened there. I've changed how I hang out with pretty much any friend group, and yeah, there's been I think we've been growing with our elbows linked with one another, and
yeah,
maybe we didn't even realize it. Maybe we did, and we just like it just lined up, and we just
yeah. The catalyst was different between us,
yeah. Oh, definitely.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was important year for everybody involved, I believe.
Yeah. So,
But
yeah.
hmm? Were you
No,
gonna
I'm
say
just
something? Okay.
no, I want to know if you had more note on that.
No, I just want us to be thinking about it for the next, week, 2 weeks. If we have stuff to talk about next week, we'll do that before getting in Doctor Who, which is 99% sure going to be what the show is
Yeah.
Doctor Who.
But I like this idea. I really do. I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting it, but I'm definitely inviting it. And you can all come along for the ride if you in fact, I will say, especially because this is already intended to be an audience participation show, that if you guys want to prepare one for the next week, any single one of you, all of you, then I think it'd be great to at some point have an episode where anybody who wants to can come up and tell us their year theme and why they picked it, maybe just in a brief little paragraph, because
yeah.
because we'd love to have a
Chevy
full
has
episode
joined
talking
the
about it with
space.
anybody, but it would take up probably a lot of time we'd want to use for other things. So yeah, like everybody would get like to say their thing in a little paragraph as to why and related to it, and yeah, I think that'd be a great
Or
thing.
you could come talk about it on the Discord, which you can find on my website, mrsashley.gay, MISSUSASHLEY.gay.
Yeah, hey, you'll
You can
hear
come
from
under
both
the
of
Discord,
us.
talk about it.
Yeah.
That's really all I had to say, unless you
Jet
have more
Set
questions
Stitchly
about
has
how
joined the
yearly themes work
space.
and whatever else.
I will say nothing more than that I think I already have one, but I'm not going to
Yeah.
reveal it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, my bigger topic for this show today is I have almost fully integrated into an Apple ecosystem, and I know you're not happy
Yeah.
about it.
That is
This is this
disgusting. How
this
Uber
is
dare
joined the
you?
space.
The PC is still
Vile,
here. I'm still on
evil.
Windows. I'm still on Windows.
this is the technological philosophical closest equivalent you could possibly do to shoving ice cubes down the back of my shirt. This is this is but yeah, no, you go off and we'll see.
Well, I want to give a little bit of background of where I've been with devices.
Sure.
Until like literally 2 weeks ago, the only Apple product I had ever owned was an iMac, and that was for college because we were using Mac specific tools. Um, but I'm never going back to Mac for as far as I can see. But before that, I've only used Android and like Android tablets and phones for as long as I've had phones for so many years now. And I would say I'm a power user of Android. I get in, do everything that I want, figure out ways to do things that it wouldn't normally allow me to. I like side loading apps. I like doing, root, all that nice stuff. Not to get all too
Root
into it,
canals.
but yeah, root canals. Um, but it Android's just been so fucking finicky and just frustrating me on a more daily basis than it had before, especially since I had Samsungs before. My lineage with phones has been a Motorola when I was in high school. I had two generations of Pixels, ending with the Pixel 3 XL, and then I swapped to the Z Flip 3, and then I landed on the S23 Ultra from Samsung, which is like a huge fucking brick of a phone, which I liked for a while, but I got fed up with it mainly because Samsung doesn't stop fucking feeding me with ads. And for some reason, my battery life on the 23 Ultra was not very good. I would get home at the end of the day to it being on 20%, which is not what I like.
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on.
Um,
You brought up just as a quick tidbit. You brought up before with me how Samsung kept feeding you ads. Could you not turn off notifications for that?
Not
I'm
for
just curious.
Samsung ads.
That's horse shit. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
like I
talk a
could
little
turn
bit
off
of
like if I
Android
had the
shit then.
Amazon app installed, I could turn it off, but Samsung Galaxy Store notifications to tell me to download Clash of Clans or whatever, no way to turn it off.
I just never tried to when I was on a Samsung, but yeah, I didn't know you just couldn't.
You can't.
Yeah,
And at the
that's
very end,
awful.
right before I got my iPhone, which I'll get into in a moment, it was giving me at least once a day, if not twice or thrice a day, ads to download something off of their store. And it's
That's
like, I'm fucking done with this shit. I
too
remember just thinking
much.
that I went into work one day and I was like, do I really want to get into Apple and all of that weirdness and shit? And as I was thinking that, it gave me another fucking ad. And I was like, yes, I want to. Absolutely. Anything to get rid of this shit.
That was an
And
act
I
of
didn't want
God,
another
just not this
Pixel or
God.
anything either. Because Pixels, I think, recently stopped letting you load other like custom OSs, custom ROMs onto it. So I was like, if they're getting rid of that, I'm just gonna fucking switch to Apple.
Pizza
And
has joined the
somehow
space.
it has become one of my favorite decisions I've ever made.
Bedrock
Uh,
has joined the space.
so to let you know, I've gotten the iPhone 15 Pro, um, the iPad Air 5th Gen because I needed a tablet, didn't have a tablet. And since this is the one thing I didn't like, but it's not Apple's fault. I used my smartwatch was the TicWatch Pro 5, and it was my favorite watch because I could literally have it on my wrist for 3 days, no charging, and it would be fine. I still wouldn't be worrying about the battery. But it's the one watch they make that they don't support on iPhone. So I had to go out and get the Apple Watch SE 2. Not my favorite thing to have to do. I would rather have my battery life, but oh well. Its battery life isn't that bad. I can still make it through the day easy, sleep with it on, put it on the charger before I go out, and it's fine. Um, but in this last like week and a half of like really diving into iOS, I have liked it a lot. The one thing that I like, but I kind of don't like, is the swipe gestures on iPhone. There isn't a universal back gesture. And I didn't like it at all until I
What?
watched a video on why the design language is like that, and it's because it's at the beginning of iPhone. The very first iPhone didn't have a back button, and they just decided, oh, all apps will just have at the top left a back thing because their philosophy is, oh, you can't trust what the back button's going to do 100% of the time. Is it going to close your app? Is it going to go back one screen? Is it going to close the keyboard? What's it going to do?
D3L Kiri
And
3Q33M
after hearing
has
that, I'm
joined the
much more
space.
okay with it.
Uh,
I'm okay with the uncertainty because I've been living in it, but I get it. I understand the decision.
I could see if you like got
Scared.
used to not if you like got used to not having I could see if you got used to like not having it there, because of iPhones, then the uncertainty would frustrate you. If it was that new to me, then I would probably sorry, we're doing a show here, thank you. But if it was like that new to me, then I would probably notice it more. I'll grant you because I want to be
Yeah.
as fair towards Apple here as possible, even though I'm very much not in favor personally. But 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 I don't know. I've just grown to a really like someone's
There's
got
someone
a
back there with an echo.
giant
If we could
echo.
mute, that'd be awesome. I don't know who
Yeah.
it was.
I I think it's gone away. Thank you. If I don't know if Lunar that was you taking care of that, or if that was just the person themselves.
Wasn't me.
But oh, okay. Well, thank
I
you
can
anyway.
only see you
But
and Ashley.
oh,
Oh,
oh, it came back.
Uh,
oh well.
Allison,
Wait,
My
you're
temporarily.
happiest friend
Okay.
has
you're
joined the
you're
space.
echoing, Allison. Mute yourself if you can.
But yeah, the back button, I don't know. It'd just be hard for me to part with. So I'm curious about your
Yeah,
developments there.
I will say there is a not universal, but 90% of the time, if you swipe from left to right on any screen where you've gone like a screen deep in an app, it will usually bring you back. I'm not thinking of any specific time where that didn't happen, but I'm sure it does on some apps. But
I'm gonna get
it,
minute
it's
with that for just 1 second.
mhm.
Like, so how finicky is it? Like, because I'm thinking, because with the Android gesture controls version, at least any that I've used, it's like as long as your finger swipes in from the left or right edge, maybe like a quarter or third across the screen, then it will do that, which I will say like has messed up with things before, like where it thought I was trying to swipe, but it hasn't really happened too much for me. But does it like is it a thing where you have to go like most of the way across the screen, or can it similarly work?
Well, it would be like if you got a notification, it's that same amount. Did it just start
Because
doing
it
hand tracking on me for no reason? Because I'm
there's no
holding the
way.
other controller over here. That's
They
fucking
don't
crazy.
advertise that.
Um, but like if you had a notification come up, it's that same amount of swiping to get it off your screen.
Okay, because the minimalism of the swiping does help with like one-handed mode if you need to, and which I
Well, so
no
far I
confidence
only use my
in that
phones
regard.
one-handed, which is why I didn't like the brick of the S23 Ultra nearly as much as I thought I would.
Hmm.
Which is why I like the 15 Pro because it is such a smaller phone. It's smaller than the Z Flip 3, which is already a pretty small phone. Um, but for me, it's just like anywhere on the screen. I'm trying to think of it like there's a pop-up happened and you just swipe it away from like the middle of the screen. You just like you grab onto that element and swipe it away. But it's like you're
Yeah.
doing that with an
Delta
entire
has
screen to
joined the
get back to the
space.
previous screen that's underneath it, kind of. That's kind of how the
Oh,
design language works. You have the base app, which is the first screen, and then if another screen comes up, you can swipe it away.
this feels like a UI equivalent of like a Duolingo course. Yeah, it's just like a different design language. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty okay with it. I'm still in that kind of learning phase of like I can't do the fucking back button. And I would say if you had the bigger, 6.8 or whatever inch iPhone Pro Max or whatever it's called, you would not be able to just reach up one handed and hit that back button in the top left because
I
that's where it is on all apps.
I would
Which
love to
I
see
actually
someone do
found
like
out. Continue.
oh, I was just gonna say I'd love to see someone do like a trick with their hand or something where like they where they flip it up in the air a little bit and boop and just put it
That sounds like something
put
I
it
would
back in
do
their
with
hand.
my unshielded phone. I don't use a
That
case, and I will never
that
use a
seems like the
case.
first thing you would do when meeting me in person for the first time. You would just show
Oh,
that off
absolutely. One
as
of
your
my
like
favorite
pen
things to
trick
do with
between the
my work
fingers.
phone, because I have a separate device for my work,
Yeah.
is I will hold it like flat out on my hand and give it a little spin in the air and catch it.
Oh, that's fun. I wait,
That's my favorite thing.
on your work phone, you don't have
Yeah.
cases on any of your phone. On any phone.
The work phone is designed to be sturdy so it doesn't break. So I'm not really
Oh,
worried
okay. I
about
was just
dropping
gonna
it.
say, like that I that would make me feel similarly that if you were like flipping around a butterfly knife in front of me. Like,
No, no, this one's like it's very fucking it's like sturdier than OtterBox cases.
oh my god,
Yeah.
like built into the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I work in retail. They don't want you to break shit. Steve died. I'm gonna wait for him for a moment, but if anyone has anything they want to say about iPhone, whatever, raise your hand. I'd love to hear it. But if not, I forget where I was in talking about it, but I have my notes in front of me. Um, one thing I do like about iPhone is that there's no pressure to just like continuously
User
close your apps.
Steve
Oh,
has
there's Steve.
joined the space.
Oi.
Hello.
Oh wait,
I
I said
was
megaphone.
yeah,
Am I
megaphone.
There we go. I redid it. Okay. Continue.
Um, one of my favorite things that I was just about to talk about the iPhone is that there's much less pressure to close your apps to save on RAM, whatever CPU power. There's not a close all apps button, which I know will infuriate so many people. And it
I will say I
infuriated me
never
at the
use
very
that button,
beginning.
but I'm also careful as to what apps I do keep open, so I guess it just equals out anyway. But
In
yeah.
my experience, no matter how many apps I have open, it doesn't degrade the usage of the phone very much, if at all. I don't notice it, at least. Um, I guess, like,
You
there's
just
not
gotta be
really a
fucking 60 and it has 70 apps on open on their phone, like that they aren't using right now. I don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine because you just load it up and it's right where you left it. No matter just about no matter how long ago you've used that app. And on my phone, I have an app that like clocks me into work that I use from outside of work. Don't tell them. um, but I'll clock in, and on my old Android phones, no matter what, even if I never closed the app officially from the day before, it will like fully reset the app, and I'll have to like do all the stuff to get back to the clock in screen. On my iPhone, it's just stayed there. It's just on the clock in screen. I can just punch in, and that's great. I love that.
That's
Um,
really nice.
let's see what else do I have on my notes. I'm now talking about the iPad. There's not much I have to say about the iPad. It's a good tablet, nice screen, media thing. I'll get
Right.
into other things I like about the iPad later because it mostly has to do with Apple Arcade,
Yeah, I will
which I
say
have thoughts
most,
on.
like,
Mhm.
besides playing games and watching movies, most of what I see see tablets in like a practical case for is people walking around with them like a clipboard, which I can, especially with
Yeah,
something like the Apple Pencil. But like, let's say if you have like if you're living with with your family, and you're organizing shit for, like, I don't know, you're renovating, or you're moving, or you're just getting shit done in general, rallying people up with like something to stick notes on, getting to gesture around, and just having a decent digital clipboard that you could just use for anything that you would need for that, but deluxe edition, which theoretically you could do with Android too, but I'm sure there's a certain amount of ease of use in Apple, as compatibility with itself is the like their
Alan
and
has
yeah.
joined the
and
space.
and
As
simplistic usage, yeah, is their whole thing.
as expensive, ridiculously expensive as the Apple Pencil is, I got it on sale. Um, so I didn't pay nearly as much as they asked for,
I
but
forgot about that.
it is ridiculously expensive, but it is leagues better than the S Pen on any Samsung anything that I've ever used.
I've
It
never
is
tried an S Pen.
so
Maybe I'll give you
good.
that. Yeah.
Um, I hate the S Pen. It there's a lot of issues Apple's worked through because they've done it for so much longer. I'm sure in 3-4 years the S Pen's going to be just as good, but um, that's really all I have to say about the iPad for now. But um, actually, sticking on the iPad for one more second, when I got
And
the
I do have
iPad
a thing to say
first.
about the iPad. Yeah.
Okay, I got the iPad first in this transfer of moving over to Apple. The setup situation of setting up my iPhone after I had already set up the iPad was just the iPad's like, oh, can you look at this code thing that's on the iPhone? And then the iPhone was just fucking set up. It was great. Absolutely loved that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Something that Samsung, I'm sure, does not. I got my Samsung phones first, so I don't know, but I liked that. What did you have to say about iPad before I move on?
Well, I will say that, okay, I know this episode, like people have heard me like given a lot of given a lot of praise to Apple just because like I'm finding things to I want to be reasonable and I don't want to just shit on them because they don't deserve to be just shat on. But so to be clear, I'm not an Apple fan remotely. It would take a lot of hard convincing, and probably Ashley's the only person in the world, if she wanted to, that could get me into their ecosystem. That being said, the one thing that I think would probably be leagues ahead, if you wanted to choose it, of any Android offering, at least that's that's standardized well, um,
Yatalos has
is
joined the
an
space.
Apple because I do a lot of digital art. I drew this, and Procreate with an Apple Pencil on an iPad Pro or any iPad equivalent, where it works well. Some of the best digital art I've ever seen, and some of the most rave reviews of any piece of art, of any at least piece of mobile art software I've ever seen. Any artists that I know across the internet who I'm either personally friends with or just following have always raved about how, like, if they're not currently sitting at their computer and they're even just on their couch, let alone on the go, and they want to do some really good paintings, some sketchups, some mock-ups, maybe some concept art even, then Procreate, Apple Pencil, iPad Pro, if you can afford it, is just a stellar option all around, and I will
I
always
want to
sing its
say
praises. Like I know
this
Disney level
generation,
artists that do it well
well,
on there.
I want to say on this generation of iPads, the iPad and iPad Pro are the same processor.
Oh,
So
okay.
you don't even like the I think the biggest difference between the iPad Air and the iPad Pro is the Pro Motion display, which is just 120 hertz instead of 60, which most
You may
artists don't
not
need
care.
120.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can do you can beyond comfortably do a lot of like professional work, hobbyist work of most mediums I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Procreate with that setup. So I want to give that all of the, left, right, and center credit that I can. But yeah, you can move on now.
Yeah, I'm no artist, but my girlfriend is, and she has been making amazing art on it. Every time I get onto it, there's a new little image there that I love seeing.
Oh, oh my God. You should put like her art pieces as like your phone background or something. That'd be super adorable.
They're the background on the iPad.
Ah, right. That's what is that what you just said? Because I was just
Well,
thinking
no,
about that as
I
you're
have a
saying it.
widget for it that shows the most recent Procreate thing
Oh.
that was drawn, but then my background is one of her pieces of art. I
Uh,
only
I
don't do it on my phone because I'm very particular about my phone.
sure. Okay.
Which
But do you,
you've heard me talk about when I was using Android, of like everything needs to be laid out in a specific way,
right.
which I'll use this as a segue into that part of my discussion because it is one of my not favorite things about the iPhone is home screen customization. How I used to do it, like if you can imagine your phone layout and you have the dock down here with your most frequently used apps or most important, whatever. I had a little U shape of folders right above it that housed all of the important things that I would need to get to very quickly, like any banking apps, all of my social media, stuff like that. Phone and stuff because I don't have my phone on my dock because I'm not a fucking psychopath. But um, Apple does not let you do that. Apple's home screen fills top left to bottom right, and it pisses me off. But recently, I have gotten it to where I have two small widgets up top that just display general information, then my reminders in the middle, and at the bottom are my folders of apps. It's not exactly what I would want. It works. I'm not angry anymore. But I do wish they would let me just put shit at the bottom first. They would let me freely do it. That's what I would love. Um, but other than that, there's not too much negative I had to say about my experience with iOS. Um, but I want to talk about the iPhone just a little bit more. Face ID
Okay.
leagues better than any fingerprint sensor that I've ever used. It just does it. It just
Really?
works. and it works fast. With the iPhone, when you go to pick it up or you pull it up to your face, it knows the motion of you picking up your phone and so turns on the screen. And so by the time you can even focus on the screen, the Face ID's gone and you're in your phone. It's unlocked. Which even when I had phones like the Pixel, where they used to have the fingerprint sensor on the back, so I would pick it up, and before I even started lifting it, I started unlocking it. I would still have to wait, that quarter, half a second for it to like boot into my stuff, which is it just happens instantly. Which you can't
Mm.
get on Pixel anymore because Pixel stopped doing the fingerprint sensor on the back, and now it's in the display, which is the worst fingerprint sensing technology.
Wait,
It
what?
pisses me
That's how
off.
I
I
prefer it.
agree.
It's slower and less accurate.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Lenore
because
has
I
joined
Yeah.
so
the space.
the previous phone that I was on was this. I don't know if I've ever said it on here, but the previous one that the previous phone that I used was a Samsung, and the current one is a OnePlus, and on the Samsung the fingerprint was on the back. I can't remember ever having any significant problems with it. But I couldn't really pinpoint why, but I always have liked it in the display as it is on the OnePlus a little more. I don't know. I think it might be the gimmick of it, of like, because I didn't know you could do that with it under the
Yeah.
display, and it always works well enough for me. I will say there is the slight point of frustration that was not present when it was on the when I was on the back of the phone, which is you could just put your finger there once and it will like while your phone is completely asleep and it will start waking it up. But with the
Yeah.
unless you want to enable a setting that like thankfully warns you that it will risk draining the battery, you will have to tap it once, maybe a quick double tap even, but that's when the fingerprint reader wakes up with like the lock screen and everything, and that's when you start it. Not a huge inconvenience to me, but definitely worth noting, because it does take a little bit more. It is slightly more finicky and takes like I don't know, takes it from I want to say like quarter to half of a second, all the way to maybe a full second, maybe a second and a half if you're not lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. On my S23 Ultra, which has it in the display, it's not like right on the edge of the display where you can kind of remember where it is. It's slightly indented. So unless I had always on display turned on, I would miss it sometimes when I went to
Hmm.
unlock my phone because you can do it with the screen turned off. It's always
It
on
should be
the
always in a
reader.
different spot on the screen, just to spice
That's what
things
I
up.
want, just to be funny.
It'd be great if that was a setting like April 1st or whatever, which no, it would
Yeah,
have to be a hardware thing, of course, but yeah.
but like I would miss it sometimes and it would frustrate me. And if you have it, I had it
Lisa
set
has
to when
joined
I'm
the
at home, my
space.
phone is unlocked just all the time because I trust the people in my house and I trust that I'm not going to get robbed at any point. But when I leave my house, it turns on locking again. But in this mode, since it's unlocked, it doesn't have the fingerprint sensor turned on. So I can't turn on the display with it. I have to double tap or hit the power button.
Does that frustrate you,
And when
like
I hit the
consciously?
power button or double tap, it sends me to the lock screen and not to my home screen, which just using the fingerprint sensor would send me to my home screen instead.
That's true. Like, is this something that like so is that I know a lot of people might see it as a minute slowdown, but does that like actively frustrate you, or is that a little nitpick?
It actively frustrates me because like when I pick up my phone, I have an intention and I want to just do what I want to do on it. So like not being able to fucking do that reliably and open up the phone within a second cuz it's like you have to do it and then realize it's not working. And then you have to go through the steps that take longer to open it up and do what you want to do.
So
So it's frustrating.
would would it make you feel any better if you just like came into it knowing, yeah, I'm gonna have to double tap and then I do the fingerprint thing, or is just that added action and time,
Well,
you
no,
know?
it's the frustration of it not being a universal action 100% of the time.
You
Because
know
at
what?
work, when I
Standardization, I
have my
get
phone
you.
locked, because I'm much more
Yeah.
likely to get robbed at work or lose it, um,
Matt has
at that
joined the
point is
space.
when something just came up on my screen and scared the shit out of me. Um, but like when I'm at work, 100% of the time at work, it's the fingerprint sensor turns on the screen and opens me up into my home screen or whatever app I was using beforehand. At home, sometimes because it's not the GPS on it is so fucking shit that sometimes my phone is locked. Sometimes it locks itself because it's been unlocked for too long, and so it'll lock itself again. Which is that's good. Security's good, but that means not every time do you use the same action to turn the phone on. I would like the
Yeah,
fingerprint sensor to essentially be a
yeah.
home button no matter what when the screen is off. But they
I think
don't they
that's
don't do that,
fair.
and there's not a setting. But with
Um,
Apple, it's just you pull up your phone to your face and it's unlocked and it's good to go.
I will say you referred to something about Samsung earlier, or maybe it was me. But I there is a slight little tangent I want to go off on because there's a lot of gripes to have about Samsung, especially with you mentioned the notifications you can't fucking turn off about their store.
Yeah,
But there is one thing Samsung gets right that I don't know why it's not standardized, because I've never seen it this way on a non-Samsung phone. We brought it up in the last episode, which was audio only, but I want to go off on it here with people here. Just one-handed mode, it doesn't have to be that hard. I understand how you if you start
Kale
from
has joined the
this,
space.
how the like okay, so for a lot, I don't know how many of you use one-handed mode on your phone, where you could just adjust things to where the top of the screen is more reachable. But I apparently it's more standardized to have just once you enter it, either by like gesture swiping from the bottom down or holding the home button, depending on what kind of device you have, uh, taking the top of the half of the screen and
Squeezo has joined the
just
space.
pulling it down to be the bottom half, and just nothing is going on up here. Like that could work fine if you're okay with it just being for a quick action. But what Samsung does is it takes the entire screen and it scrunches it to, like, I don't know, half the size, maybe close to like a quarter of the size, which seems like it would be terrible, but I was able to very consistently use it like that. It scrunches it down there. You can resize it to be a different ratio if you want, like to like different fraction of what the normal screen size would be, and you can make it left-handed or right-handed if you want. So it'll scrunch into whatever thumb reach that you have, and like in case you wanted it this way, it was a completely usable phone experience entirely on your left hand without having to entirely on your hand in general, one hand, without having to switch between modes. And that's something that
yeah,
I valued highly, that I just don't get why that's not on more phones. And I get that it's a
yeah.
nitpick, but it's like it became so glaring when it wasn't there, just like how the back button would probably just like how the back button would be if I switched to not having a strict back button. Yeah,
While I 100% agree with you, I will do a little bit of defense and
sure.
say it could be a visibility issue of it becoming so small for certain
Again,
people
you could adjust
with
it
like,
though.
but like with it just dropping down the top of the screen, you get full size text.
That's fair. That is fair. So if you have, yeah, if
So
you have
and
eyesight issues,
especially
yeah.
if you have one of those like, oh, you turn the font way up because you have bad eyesight,
Hmm.
then that's just an unusable version of one-handed mode.
I will say, then if that's the case, because this method has been figured out and it can still work for a lot of people, I don't see why that shouldn't be a setting where you can toggle between
Yeah,
different, like if you can toggle between, because I know on Android phones you can do this. I don't know if Apple has an equivalent. Um, and I like that you can do this. On my phone, you can do this. You can toggle between having the normal three buttons at the bottom and switching to an entirely different control system, pretty much the gesture control system, with the gesture bar, and you can even have that disappear if you want to, if that's something that matters to you. But if you could switch between those, you should be able to toggle different I keep saying left-handed modes just because like I
it's
keep
because
having to
you're a
find my lefty
lefty.
options because I'm a lefty, but I'm a leftist pig. No,
Matt has
like
joined the space.
both should be an option. That's my thing. I have nothing more to say
Yeah,
on it.
I
I'm just
agree with that.
fucking
Both should be
frustrated.
an option.
Yeah.
Um, but let's move on so we can continue to the end of the show. Let's see what else do I
Sure.
have in my notes. The smaller size of the iPhone 15 compared to other phones that I've used, which I know I've used gigantic phones before. Oh, we have a hand raise. Was that a hand
Oh
raise?
shit. Yeah, and sometimes people are just relaxing and we can't tell.
No, they're running away.
Um,
That's fine.
yeah, okay. Yeah. You get back here.
Um,
No, I'm kidding.
but the smaller phone, it feels like perfectly made for me and my hand size. Um, so like I can reach everywhere on the screen when I'm using it, casually, which is not
Mhm.
something I can say about my old Samsung phones. Is either the flip was either too tall or the S23 Ultra was just too fucking brick. Like it was fucking huge. Um, so I enjoy that. Not much else to say about that. I apparently I don't remember writing this, but I wrote just in one line, apps just work, which is true. Apps just fucking work. Where that is not always a thing on Android. Um they're getting better about that though, so I won't dunk
I
on
was
Android much for
just
that.
gonna say I rarely have a problem with apps, but I do
Yeah,
understand
it
how
was
there
an
is.
older issue.
Yeah, it was
I've
somewhat
had
of a.
times
Yeah.
recently where things like Google Pay integration is just completely fucked for some things, and it pisses me off.
Hmm.
Where Apple Pay is just uniform. Everybody knows how to integrate it. So
What happened to
it's been
Samsung
working
Pay?
so
Didn't
far.
that have like a special thing going on where it was like a where it was
I never
compatible with
used
like
it.
like I thought I heard about like it being compatible with shit that people really didn't expect it to be, though that I could be completely
I
making
mean,
that up. I
Samsung
want to
Pay
look that up.
was getting up there with
Yeah,
like the most used digital wallets. I just never used it.
Yeah,
yeah.
was it
I actually that's a
compatible
lot.
with
I used it
anything
on
you
my
could
old
tap to pay
smartwatch when I had a
with?
Samsung smartwatch, but I the only times I ever used it was on vending machines. So didn't get much use out of it. My battery life
I'm
somehow
just thinking
is
of you
leagues better
slapping
than
your
the
wrist against a
S23
vending
Ultra.
machine.
What?
I'm thinking of you just like slapping your wrist against a vending machine.
Well,
Just
it
like
actually worked really seamlessly at the
give me
time
my
because
fucking
I
Pringles.
would have it loaded up on my wrist already and just go like boop, and it was over. The transaction was made.
Hmm.
Um, but so the battery life on my iPhone 15 Pro somehow, despite everyone saying it's like the weakest battery out of the iPhone lineup right now, um, it's leagues better than my 23 Ultra. But I will give it the benefit of the doubt that once I put even more stuff on the iPhone, it's going to get worse. Because I had an ungodly amount of shit on my Samsung. Shortcuts app. I did not give shortcuts enough credit until I used it. Before on Samsung, they have routines, which you can set up for certain things to happen when other things trigger it. And they had you could download Good Lock app to give routines even more power, but it wasn't there by default. You had to download that. Shortcuts has more power than Routines Plus and is there by default. And it is so fucking customizable. It honestly doesn't feel like an Apple made app. And it's fucking amazing. I have it set
That's
up right
fascinating.
now for when I'm in different places, different modes turn on and off, different settings are turned on and off. And once I actually switch all of my smart home things, because I'm being lazy about it, not all my smart home stuff is on my iPhone yet. I'm going to be doing even more that I couldn't even do before with my Samsung, which I'm very happy
Yeah.
with.
Though we do need to take a break
Granted,
for
most
a
of the
bit to
smart home
mention
stuff was limited by Google Home. What?
this episode is sponsored by the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I'm kidding. I'm so, I
No,
just for
not the Pro
I
Max. The
don't know.
Pro Max is too big. Uh,
This started to feel like a commercial for a second there. We're not actually sponsored by anybody, but yeah.
well, I just really like Apple so far. Especially the Shortcuts app is loading up a whole set of automations that I didn't think I ever even wanted, but I do. But I'm going to move on to talk about the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch has the least to say about it, but a couple of things. Like I said earlier, the TicWatch Pro 5 was my previous one. It had 3-day plus battery life. Miss that. The Apple Watch gets me through the day. I come
40
home at,
seconds.
I leave, I take my Apple Watch off the charger at 100% at around 9:30 a.m. I get home about 8:30 p.m. and it still has 60% charge at least. So it's fine.
That's not too bad.
One thing I didn't like about the TicWatch was when I was playing media, it just pulled up a very tiny, tiny button on the home screen of it to where I could then press into media controls. Easy to not even be able to touch it because it's so small. Apple Watch, it just is there all the time. That once you start playing something, the media controls are there. Love it. Um, I think that's all I have to say about the Apple Watch. I don't use it that much. It is there purely for notification. That's what I use my watch for.
I still think it'd be
Um,
really fucking fun for smartwatches to just be able to be their own, their own cellular device. I know it's not practical. It's not a great idea,
I mean that
but
you can.
you can? Wait, now you can?
There's many watches for a long time now that you can put a SIM card into.
Wait, I kept being told like a couple of years ago when I like last really like thought about this that that no, it's basically meaningless, not attached to a phone, and that you just can't do that, and it wouldn't be practical.
No,
Is
you
that
can put
just
a SIM card in it. The same way
were
you
they
can put a
lying
SIM
through their
card
teeth?
into like a tablet.
Wait, so then do you just not need a phone for a lot of smartwatches? Maybe not all of them, but like
Well, you would want to set it up with the phone.
Goodbye has
I don't
joined
know.
the
I
race.
think
Psychosis has
I'm
joined
not
the
sure how
race.
setup works without a phone because I've never done it. So I don't know, but I know you can put a SIM card into it and go on your run and still be able to get calls and messages and stuff
that's fucking
without having to have
great.
your
What
phone
kind of
on you.
storage is on those? Because
I
if
don't
you want
know.
storage,
I didn't that's not part of my desire of a watch.
okay,
You do
yeah.
would need to then pay for another line on your cell plan. So is it worth it to you? Maybe.
Oh no,
Not
I
for
meant like
me.
as a phone replacement theoretically. But
Well, I wouldn't want to
what I
replace
think
my
is really especially
phone.
funny, what I think is again not a necessarily practical idea. I just think it'd be fun for it to be possible. But it'd be really what's w- a really funny thing that just occurred to me is that I vastly prefer wired headphones over wireless, and so I
Yeah.
think I just implied that that I'd like go for a run with plugging my headphones through a wire into my wristwatch as it's going on my run.
You're just
Just
smacking yourself with a cable every time you pull
like
your
and just every time I trip a little bit, my earphones turn into the "get over here" chain. And it just starts wailing on people. No, but yeah. Oh
I
fuck.
mean you could my the most of my watches that I've ever had have internal storage where you can like download any kind of audio, podcast, music, whatever, and
Sure.
link your wireless earbuds to it. So you could absolutely. I know you'll never do wireless because fuck you, but but to finish off because we're at that kind of time, aren't we?
Chancellor has joined the
Um
space.
Apple Arcade. I didn't think I would care about Apple Arcade. It has some pretty good fucking games on it. Um, the new Sonic game that just came out, Apple Arcade exclusive, very good, especially if you like the older Sonic Adventure titles.
I
It's
am
not
still
exactly like
surprised by
that, but
that.
it's that style. Dreamlight Valley, the Disney kind of Stardew Valley esque game, is on there. It's not like it's not on other things, but there's a Hello Kitty game that's a lot like Animal Crossing, which I was very surprised to have seen and ended up really liking. But they also have some other PC games. They have Apple Arcade doesn't have it, but Apple in general has the Resident Evil 7, I believe, game on it, which
What I
full
think
quality.
what I think is really funny about the juxtaposition of some of the games you're mentioning is that like because you mentioned Disney Dreamlight Valley, which
Hmm.
I have a lot of neurodivergent buddies who like use that as a stim, as I've told you. But then right after that, you mentioned probably the most visually overstimulating like cutesy app possible, the Hello Kitty one. And then
Yeah,
right just
and then
juxtaposed
Resident
alongside it.
Evil.
And then yeah, Hello Kitty, just chase Hello Kitty with a Resident Evil, little shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Slay the Spire, an amazing indie roguelike deck builder game. Absolutely love it. And I mean, they have the usual any iOS mobile device. Shovel Knight Dig is one of my favorites. Bloons Tower Defense. Apparently, there's going to be a new Tamagotchi game next year. I haven't had the time to look into it too much, but it looks like it's going to be a cool, also Animal Crossing type.
I am fascinated. Who has a still living Tamagotchi? This
No
just
one, they
got
killed
grim.
them. They killed them all. They're all dead.
This episode just got a little more grim. But you could bring them to the thought bubble next week. Tell us how they're doing.
Let's see what have I not covered in the "Is it all good" section of my notes.
Is it
Um,
all Gucci?
no side loading apps, which sucks. I want to side load my apps,
Yeah.
but
Oh
I'll
my
live with it.
God, you're right.
Yeah,
I seriously because we had like a little bit of a more heated discussion about like how much I hate Apple and how much Ashley's getting into it before the episode, but I was emphasizing
we
later
cannot
on how
start this argument.
no, 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 no. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm
Okay.
doing. But I was emphasizing how like if anybody could convince me to get an to like switch to an iPhone, if that was so necessary, then it would probably be you. I just realized not being able to sideload apps might be just enough to like completely break that plan. But
Yeah,
I am fascinated by anything else that can possibly tempt me because of how
yeah.
anti-Apple I've been.
I'm not as heartbroken about it as I used to be. My main thing was long time ago at this point, there was a game, Sonic Runners, which you might know, Sonic Runners Adventure. It's the shit version of Sonic Runners. I don't know why they made Sonic Runners this amazing game and then made a worse version of it and put it on the store. But there was a small development team that kept that version of the game alive, that you could sideload their app and play it. I'm not as devastated about not being able to sideload it now, because that version of the game is a 32-bit processing version, and almost no current Android does it's 32-bit anymore. It's all 64-bit apps, so can't even
Mhm.
sideload it anymore. Just doesn't work on new phones. And I think some of the bigger Android phone makers are stopping sideloading apps soon. I've heard. I need to look into it more. Don't take my word on it.
What's
But that
even
would
the point
suck to see
anymore?
happen. Huh?
What's even the point anymore?
Honestly, with this new, I've researched a bit on what iPhone, lovers have thought about this new iPhone. Apparently, this generation is the time that if an Android user wanted to switch, this is the time to switch. This is the most
Oh,
Android-like experience iPhone's ever
Still
been, from what I've
286
been
user
hearing
has
from
joined
online
the stage.
reviews.
that's really funny because of how many times people have the running joke of if there's a really cool Apple feature, usually Android does it first and years before, and like that's it's really funny as kind of like a culmination of they're just doing more and more things like Android. I wonder how far that's actually going to go, if that's actually a pattern or if it's just a if it's just a little gag. But I
Yeah, I
I
am
I'd be willing
very
to see more of a
interested to see
breakdown
the
of it.
future.
Yeah. Again, I am not switching to iPhone anytime soon, but I'm so fascinated by any little changes of
I
perspective on that.
personally don't think iPhone is for you, at least not right now with your current setup of things.
Hmm.
But
Especially
if
because they
one
haven't
day,
had a headphone jack since like 1982.
yeah, one day when new phones no longer as well, to the point where the only ones that have a headphone jack are ones you wouldn't want anyway, that's
Do
when I'll
you want
convert
me
you.
to have a mental breakdown live on stage in Banter VR?
Always, that it creates content. That's buzz.
We have
But
found the
yeah,
tall
so
sister.
I don't think I have any more things to say about the iPhone. I'm very happy with my purchase so far. Can't wait to see where it's going to go, especially with some of those Apple Arcade games.
Yeah. I mean, I thank you for all the. I mean, you honestly, you've dove in more into the because if I had like stupid fucking money, I would probably have wanted to be like, you know what? For like about a month or two, I would explore the Apple ecosystem just to be like, as much as I know I won't want to entirely switch, I would want to like, look around and study it, see how it, see what kind of things that I tend to miss and see what things that maybe for once like Android and Windows could learn from it, and like all the things that, because I really want to get in the perspective of somebody who, like, because for for like kooky funny reasons, I tend to really like, I tend to like a humorously like cultish extent, I tend to shit on Apple, but I'd really like to see things from a Apple user's shoes. So frankly, this might be more of a benefit to me than I thought. Just, having such a close buddy who is, thankfully as unbiased as you are, who is still leaning in the opposite direction of it. So yeah, I honestly, I was scared at first about leaning into Apple for however many episodes that we're gonna do that, but it is a
Well, I
nice
have a
learning
phone
experience.
plan that's iPhone for 3 years.
Yeah. So you'll get at least a few
um,
more episodes worth of that.
yeah,
Hopefully
my
not
current
this much
plan is
Apple in one episode. But yeah.
my current plan is that every year for the next 3 years I can upgrade to the newest iPhone for free. So
Yeah.
we are
I'm
going to
learning a
see the
lot of things I
progression.
wouldn't have. Yeah. So this is going to be really interesting. And, especially if you ever, like, I don't know, if somehow between now and the end of your phone plan you become like a multi-trillionaire, you can get your hands on a fucking Vision Pro, and then, give us a little, you come into banter on that shit. It's
Yeah,
see how that goes. But yeah, I've enjoyed the ride here. Do we want to do an
yeah,
outro?
sure, go ahead. I feel like I've talked
Absolutely.
enough and my throat hurts.
So yeah, I mentioned before that I do improv. This Friday you can actually join. So every single Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we toss it between banter and VR chat. This week it's in banter. Um, we do improv. I do improv night with Stevie and Show, my buddy Shiseki, where we do improv games, including, bringing up audience members to play them with us. Um, and yeah, we also have, I in VR chat. Tomorrow is the second episode of this week of Improvatars at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll either be in it or I'll just be there. And yeah, you can access anything you'd need to know about me from improvvr.co.uk. That's improv, then an r.co.uk. Also, fuck Apple. Ashley, do you wanna give yours?
You can find me everywhere on the internet, on the website mrsashley.gay, MISSUSASHLEY.gay. There you can find the Discord where you can talk about anything we've talked about or in this episode, anything else you want to talk about. There's general channels for everything. You can find me on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Twitch. Here soon enough, I'm going to be releasing my podcast Threshold, which
You were
is
gonna say an
about
album.
the best. What?
I thought you were gonna say I'll be releasing an album.
No,
And I'm like, I
my
know you were
mixtape.
starting new things.
No, my podcast Threshold, where me and my co-host Jesse go through every Star Trek episodes based on their IMDb score. We swap every episode from the top of the list to the bottom of the list. That should be releasing within this month. Hopefully, now that I've said it, I kind of have to make it so. Did you get the reference?
Make it so. Oh, okay. I thought, damn, I thought I was catching a pun. Uh,
but yeah, I think that's about it.
was Make It So Patrick Stewart? I'm sorry, I have to know
Yeah,
now. Oh, okay.
his
'Cause that could have
memoir
been
is
Cisco.
making it so.
Is that literally? Oh, sorry. It's just absolute last microsecond. Faye wanted to make an announcement live on the show. Do you feel like it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
come
Faye,
on.
hey.
Awesome. Well, since I wanted to wait till the very end when
At least
your
get in the
audience
chair.
was dispersing. Oh, sure. Okay, well, I would like to take everybody on a field trip to see a releasing of an amazing technology that Aline created for us. So I'd love to
Oh.
take you and your audience on a little field trip at the end. Mhm.
Let's go.
Looks like we're going meta. Not
It's a very,
that.
very
Sorry.
cool
That's a
feature.
different company.
That just did. Fuck.
We're going
No,
banter. We're going
make it so.
The Banterverse.
Okay, I'll make it so.
With Frizz? No way.
Yay.
Making some